Welcome to Interesting World Documentaries, Bicycles, the Early Years. I'm Don Holifield, and like most of you, I remember my first bicycle and the thrill of balancing and, the training wheels and your parents pushing you, and then you finally get it to go, and it happened quick, like almost the first time. And you're thinking, wow, I can't wait to try again, but you can't stop. And then you finally learn how to stop and all is good. Well, I got my first bicycle then and it got crushed. I parked it behind Grandma's car, and when she went in reverse, she ran over it and squished it. My grandfather was really upset, and I think that's where I get all my madness from, is my grandfather, from watching him display his emotions after my bicycle got ran over. My second bicycle, I got at a swap meet. Back in the 60s, we would take all our toys and go down every spring and swap them in for new toys. And this year, I got my first swim bicycle. And I already knew how to ride, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But at least I had the freedom to go anywhere, unless I wanted to carry something like my cello or my guitar. And then it was kind of tough, because I was a little fellow. But once you learn, you never forget. And I was off and away to the Escondido bike safety course. And everybody had to go down there and learn how to safely ride a bicycle. The dandy horse, an English nickname for what was first called a running machine, then a velocipede, or sometimes hobby horse or swift walker, is a human-powered vehicle that, being the first means of transport to make use of the two-wheeler principle, is regarded as the first bicycle. The dandy horse is a foot-propelled vehicle powered by the rider's feet on the ground instead of the pedals of later bicycles. It was invented by Carl Dries, who called it a running machine in 1817, and then patented by him in France in February of 1818, using the new term velocipede. It also is called several other names in German and English, most of which I cannot even pronounce. The dandy horse was a two-wheeled vehicle with both wheels in line, propelled by the rider pushing along the ground with the feet, as in regular walking or running, or the Flintstones or children on today's toys. The front wheel and handlebar assembly was hinged to allow steering. The dandy horse was capable of more than doubling the average walking speed to around 10 miles per hour, or 16 kilometers an hour on level ground. Dries was inspired, at least in part, by the need to develop a form of transit that did not rely on the horse. And after the eruption of Mount Tora Bora and the year without a summer in 1816, which followed close on the devastation of the Napoleon Wars, widespread crop failures and food shortages resulted in the deaths of tens of thousands of horses, which either starved to death or were killed to provide meat and hides. In wartime, he wrote, when horses and their fodder often become scarce, a small fleet of such wagons at each corps could be important, especially for dispatches over short distances and for carrying the wounded. Several manufacturers in France and England made their own dandy horses. During its brief popularity in the summer of 1819, most notably Dennis Johnson of London, who used an elegantly curved wooden frame that allowed the use of larger wheels. In the United States, a patent for a two-wheeled human vehicle was awarded to W.K. Clarkson of New York on June 26, 1819. However, in 1836, a fire in the United States Patent Office destroyed the only surviving drawings, and prototype of the invention was never built by Clarkson. Which tells you something. Maybe you should always build a prototype first. Dandy horses first appeared on the footpaths of Germany in 1820. They were heavy and cumbersome, and as a result, riders preferred to operate their vehicles on smooth pavement instead of the rough roads. The modern adaptation has been adapted as a starter bicycle for children and is called a balance bike or run bike. That is very interesting. The Boneshaker was made of wood and iron and lacked springs, which made for an uncomfortable ride. This is one of the very first bicycles to use pedals. By the Michaux brothers, Ernest and Pierre invented the Boneshaker bicycle in 1861. The Boneshaker was the first bicycle with pedals and was also known as a Velocipede. Pedals were attached to the front axle of the wheel. The brakes were added a few years after the pedals and were operated by twisting the handlebar to pull a leather strap that applied friction to the back wheel. The Boneshaker had wagon-style wheels, with the front wheel being larger than the rear. The seat was mounted on a spring, which made it more comfortable than earlier designs. The earliest Boneshakers had horizontal frames, but later models had curved downward and were joined to the rear axle. The Boneshaker was the predecessor to the safety bicycle, which became popular in 1880s. The Oliver brothers, all of which I cannot pronounce, maybe Rene, I can pronounce Rene, were among the first people responsible for recognizing the commercial potential of the bicycle. The Oliver family was wealthy, tons of money, owning multiple chemical plants in France. The family were based in Lyon. While students in Paris in 1864, the brothers were among the first users of the Velocipede. They could afford it, they had one. In 1868, the Olivers formed a partnership with Pierre Michaux to mass-produce bicycles. This Pierre fella, he was the first one to come up with it. These guys had the money. Rene Olivier led the Michaux company and the industry as a whole through the bicycle craze from 1867 to 1869. Then, with no surprise, several major problems developed. The cast iron frames sometimes failed catastrophically. The relationship between the brothers and Michaux also failed. In 1869, Rene formed his own bicycle factory. However, the bicycle craze in France and in the U.S. ended that year, the bicycle's popularity continuing only in England. James Stanley, a British engineer, invented the penny farthing bicycle in 1871. The penny farthing, also known as the high-wheel bicycle, was the first efficient bicycle with a large front wheel and a much smaller rear wheel. Eugene Meyer, a French inventor who created the high-wheeler bicycle design in 1869. Well, he had patents to the spokes and many different other things concerning this bicycle. British cyclist James Moore rode Meyer's penny farthing in the 1870 at the Midland County Championship, the first time it was seen in England. John Starley's nephew, who created the Rover safety bicycle in 1885, which was easier to use, less dangerous, and faster than the penny farthing. Another wonderful innovation was from John Dunlop. He was a doctor, and he had some rubber mats, and he cut them all up and made us a tire. John Dunlop created the pneumatic tire in 1888, which made bicycles more stable and able to handle rougher environments. The penny farthing was popular from around 1875 to 1890. It was eventually replaced by the Rover safety bicycle and the pneumatic tires of John Dunlop. Wow, that is amazing.